if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer about that, so.
Madam Chair?
Selectman Archinsky.
You know, it's funny that you brought that up because it is one of my SMART goals. If you read my goals that we're getting ready to set our goals for next year. And it always seems as though we're either waiting for an academy to come up or we're waiting for the money to fund more police officers or whatever. And you know, I mean, you know, staffing certainly is under your purview. But I just wonder if we couldn't get to a better place where we just order 2 slots in every area that's within the area and let us worry about whether we're going to get you the manpower, the money for the manpower.
Right.
Because it just always seems like nothing ever jives, and when the academy's ready to go, we're going through this whole background process that takes months to do. Right. And we miss the thing. You know, would that help, Chief?
It absolutely would. And, you know, Mr. Archinsky, I'm glad you recognize that, because since I've been, when I was hired here, the plan was to put 2 officers on every year to sort of get to that magic 57 number from the MRI report of 2015. And then for whatever reason, you know, it just never transpired. So I'm hoping that in working with the town manager and getting those numbers moving forward as we can, but it makes me happy that you can recognize that, because we are always playing sort of catch up and getting academy slots. We normally use the Lowell Academy. And they generally start their sessions May or June generally, and it's 21 weeks or 26 weeks. So we have to have those numbers, you know, right after the budget cycle is done in December or whatever, when we start working on the budget. And then once we get the funding for that, we can start those processes to hopefully get them in the May Academy. And it's just hasn't been consistent. And I would love the support of that we can make it consistent. That would make me really happy.
Right,
So,
and you know, my thought process is that, you know, even if we ordered two slots in the academy and we didn't have the funding, it's easier to cancel a slot than it is to get one that's already taken. So that's, we'll be discussing that a lot more. The other question I had, Chief, is did we do anything this year for a National Night Out?
No, we didn't. And that's something that I really want to get going on, because I think that's a real good community involvement piece. I think National Night Out is something that we really should, but I want to plan for it. This could be something that's really inclusive of the whole community. I'd love to be able to use maybe Veterans Park or another venue in town where we can have, you know, food for folks, a demo, maybe a touch-a-truck with the fire department, some NEMLEC assets, those types of things. But there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and it is something that's on my radar. I would really like to participate in that. I really think it's important to have that be part of a community event that we can do that highlights police and collectively against crime.
Okay, just so you know, National Night Out is not a new thing. It's been,
not.
you know, for 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
The other thing is that I recently, and I think you were there, I'm sure you were there, I recently attended a former police officer's wake, and I noticed that there was no honor guard. Do we have an honor guard in the police department?
So we don't really have an honor guard at this time. That, again, is something that I've been working on. Lieutenant Goslin was looking at honor guard uniforms. They're really expensive. But that's something that I think that we should really push forward to as well. I mean, I'd love to have everybody to have their own individual Class A uniform, and then we can specify an honor guard uniform so we can participate in things like that. You know, I didn't speak to the family of the officer, but certainly if they had requested, I don't know who the liaison was, but if they had requested an honor guard or a standing honor of officers at that services, I certainly would have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was happy to see that Lieutenant Goslin had taken the ball and you know, notified all of us old guys
Right.
to come. And then the last thing, Chief, is somebody brought this to my attention, and I don't know if I believe it or not, but I'm going to ask you. So our police department is located way down yonder, down a street that nobody's ever been down on Loon Hill Road, which if it were up to me, I would have never put the police department there. And they said that one of their children, daughters, was being followed home from work one night, And they found that when she went to the police department, there was nobody in the building. How does that happen, and who thinks that's a good idea?
It's not really a good idea, but sometimes if we have only one supervisor working and there's a pressing need for a supervisor out on the road, and we don't have a prisoner, the officer in charge is going to have to go out and respond to that need for a supervisor.
And I have asked other police officers, and I guess the way it works is if your daughter is in trouble and she goes to the front door to the police department, she can ring a bell, and I guess it rings the supervisor's phone or whatever, and he says, I'm on my way. I don't like that. I think that is a very, very dangerous situation to put our citizens in, and we got to find a way around that. This is not some hick town in New Hampshire where, where people just go by the police department. We have a very big population here, and I would hate to see some young person go into the police department for help and finding that there's nobody in the building. I want to work with somebody and mitigate that problem.
No, I agree with you. I'd love to work with you on that. I think, again, it comes down to personnel. That issue comes down to personnel. It's ideally to have someone in the building at all times, and the officer in charge is that person. But if we have only one supervisor working because time off or whatever, and there's a need for a supervisor to respond to a call for service, they have to go. I mean, the officers on the road need a supervisor. So it would be ideal to have an officer in charge in the building and a road supervisor. That's the ideal balance there, but again, it's personnel numbers.
And this is all as a result of us joining the RECC?
Pretty much. Because even if we were to hire clerical positions, you don't want to put them in that position. You'd have to have an officer.
Right, for sure. Okay, and the only other thing, Chief, I don't mean to, get on you, but I will say that I was I was not happy that you felt it necessary to go to the school committee and tell them that they were out, they were going to be short 2 SROs without any of us knowing about it. I don't know what the protocol is, but I would much rather have heard that from the town manager than a constituent.
Well, I was asked by the superintendent, he said if the committee wants you to appear, would you do that? And I said yes. I didn't realize there was a protocol to notify you first. I certainly would have done that if that was the case, but my intention wasn't to keep you out of the loop. I didn't know that there was a protocol to do that, so.
All right, thank you.